every adult has a million things going on at any one point, and drowning is overwhelm in terms of this. It's all that stuff that is coming at you all at the same time. Now, even a basic to-do, any sort of basic to-do list will give you an edge.
So I'm delighted to have as my guest Rob Newman, who's written 14 books. I think it's fair to say, Rob, isn't it? 14 books?
14 with another one coming out in September. That's number 15.
And running a practice. And I think, as you mentioned to me, you have a few team members, don't you?
28 currently, team members, but as well as practice, there's 2 other businesses as well, just in case anybody's interested, which is a will writing practice that has another 12 people in it, an IFA business that has 3 people in it, and a very embryonic forensics practice, which is just me at this moment. But I'm increasingly loving doing dispute resolutions and divorce cases and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff.
So what I'd like you to share with the people who are the listeners, Rob, is your journey, because having listened to some of your journey, you've had quite a varied career, haven't you, before you came into accountancy? Is that a diplomatic way of saying?
That's an incredibly diplomatic way of it. It's one of those interesting journey routes onto things. And to tell the journey, it all makes perfect sense if you do it drip by drip. And I promise I won't bore everyone to death, but I mean, fundamentally, I never knew my father. My mother was an alcoholic, and by the time I was 16 years old, I was on my own. I joined in. I initially managed to get an apprenticeship in kitchens in London. I got sacked quite quickly afterwards because I thought I should be head chef. I drifted over to Italy, trained to be a chef in Italy.
I think the kitchen you worked in London was the Savoy, wasn't it?
Claridge's.
Claridge's, which is almost as good as a Savoy, is it? Or is it better?
It's better. Come on, let's be honest. It's much better.
And actually, it isn't an ordinary kitchen, isn't it? That would have been a hell of a opportunity, wouldn't it?
It was a proper opportunity. It was a proper apprenticeship, and it would have led somewhere. But you know, as every 16, 17, I was thinking of 17 at that point. Every 17-year-old thinks that they should be in charge, and I thought I should absolutely be, you know, the man at that point, having had no experience in anything and was still learning how to chop vegetables properly. So it was a long-term regret that I walked out when I did, but I then had a fabulous year in Italy afterwards. And to this day, I still go to Florence as much as I can and still go and see Giorgio and still learn his recipes and techniques. And last year when we were there, he was saying about how in front of my wife, who I'm very happily married to, I should have married his daughter and it would be much better because then he'd have a successor to the place. But so yeah, kitchens, cooking led me to being a cook in the army. That led me to attachment to Parachute Regiment. That led me to the Parachute Regiment, which went nowhere. So I started trying to find trades. And the trade I started learning then subsequently in the army is accountancy. I got made redundant in options for change in the 90s, and here I am in accountancy since. So if you say it like that, it does kind of make sense because it's sort of one transitions to the other.
So it sort of evolved, doesn't it?
It evolved to this day. It still evolves, and I still get involved in all sorts of weird stuff because in my view, some of the most exciting part of my career was probably 2008 to about 16. And 2008 to 16, I acted as finance director for a small venture fund that was turning around companies. So after the financial crash of 2008, when I completely fell on my own arse and had lost everything, when RBS pulled it, a high street bank pulled everything from underneath me. I got this opportunity to, as I say, join as FD of a fund that had, at that point, 30 million quid. And was buying distressed companies, and we went in and I was literally screwing brass plates onto fixed assets all over the things. And you know that particular fund always had the headline of we bought a company out of admin for £1 and sold it for 48 million, and which is a great way of saying something that isn't quite true when you go into it, because you buy it for the £1 but then have to put several million quid in to fund it once you're actually there. But that part was particularly, that to me was always the most fascinating part of my career. But I do have stories of, you know, flying out of Kosovo and all this kind of stuff, which over beers and things I do start telling people, and I do include in some of the books I write. And an awful lot of the books, it sounds like I've suddenly got loads of these, but I've written forever and I've kept journals forever, and a lot of them are just things that have already existed or have been blogs and I've just tidied up, or have been used as internal manuals. I mean, one of the things that has always affected me as a business was Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth. I give it out to all clients for years, and treat your business as if one day it is going to become a franchise. And I've preached that mantra now for 28 years. In so doing, I wrote everything down that we did as we went along. And an awful lot of the books are just that. They're just stuff I wrote down along the way and have now tidied up and tarted up and thrown it out on Amazon going, well, actually, other people may benefit from this as well. One of the last ones I put in was my recruitment process. And I'm very open about all of these, that I don't think I've ever invented any of it, ever. I think I've always just stolen ideas from everywhere else. And if I consciously know that, I'll tell you where I got it from.
I call that R&D, which stands for rip off and duplicate.
Very true. That's excellent. Rip off and duplicate. This particular one, the recruiting and retention of staff one that I recently put out, I'd say I completely ripped the core ideas off from Dan Kennedy of how to recruit and do things. And one of the key ways that I've always managed to develop teams that stick is in that recruiting process, because I've always put something along the lines of an advert in a local paper that says you must deliver your application in a particular way, and if you don't, I won't even read it. So in the old days, I'd always say put it in a brown envelope. Nowadays, I'll say send it to a particular email address that won't be the standard email address. I'll then say, if I'm inviting you into the process of it, please wear an item of clothing that is visible, that is green or red or something. And again, if you turn up and are not wearing something red or green or whatever I've said, I'll be very pleasant to you, but you're not going anywhere in this. The very first thing I'll then do is that I'll have 2 or 3 people all come at the same time, deliberately. I'll put them all in reception and turn around and say, I'd like you all to give me 5 minutes about something you know on the company. Now, I'm not expecting to give anything groundbreaking. What I'm trying to filter there is, so far I've said, can you actually take instruction and follow it? Have you been bothered to actually read anything about my business before you've turned up and have any idea of what it is I'm doing on this? And can you come at a particular time? Because I'll have invited you to the interview at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you've massively filtered people out. Now, that has created a long-term team for me just doing that. It's not about the qualifications. It's about you can follow instructions, you actually can read, you give a shit because you've read about my company and you turned up when you said you would. Well, isn't that the foundation of any good team anywhere? And it's things like that that I will then put into the books and talk about and bring to other people, which very, very neatly brings to make the bloody list. The reason you've invited me along today, because that is a compilation of all the best tips that I ever got to from all the different places I ever got them from, of how to survive if you've got a million things going on. Because not only have I got the different businesses, and not only do I do podcasting, and not only have I become a LinkedIn person with 50,000 followers at this stage, I also teach martial arts and I also teach yoga. And people have been like, how the hell do you do all this crap? And to me, it's quite obvious, because make a bloody list, actually survive it on a day-to-day basis. Put certain key principles in place to ensure that you stay on top of it.
Because I think you start the book by talking about most people are drowning.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if you'd like to share what you mean by most people are drowning.
Every adult has a million things going on at any one point. They've always got, Jimmy has to go to swimming, and the dog needs to go to the vet, and the shopping needs to be done, and the house needs to be cleaned, and there's 6,000 pieces of laundry to fold, and. And drowning is overwhelm in terms of this. It's all that stuff that is coming at you all at the same time if you're an adult. All of those mundane things that you've got to deal with all at once. And it's that then procrastination that overwhelm will develop in most people. They'll end up sitting at it, looking at it, having no actual capturing of it, and most people will then deal with the stuff that is shouting loudest and firefighting. But it's shouting loudest and firefighting has now become urgent But it didn't need to be. It could have been dealt with 3 weeks ago when it wasn't urgent if you just thought about it in a logical process. So it's capturing what comes through the door, ordering it in some sort of order to then have 2 or 3 things. I aim for 3 things a day that you can actually do and get out the door. Now, one of those things can be really minor. It can be a really minor thing of, make the vet appointment. It can be, take the washing out of the washing machine. This isn't groundbreaking, life-changing, massive, big projects that we're talking about. This is dealing with day-to-day living. You're in the midst of all of that crap that you've got to handle as an adult. And how do you juggle it all? What do you do? Now, even a basic to-do, any sort of basic to-do list will give you an edge rather than just having this swirling around in your head. And you know it from people that you deal with, from those in your own life. If they've got some sort of list of what's going on against those that don't have a list of what's going on, you can see that person immediately, be it in work, be it outside of work, be it the person going around Tesco's with a shopping list as opposed to, oh, I quite like the look of that. Any sort of training that you do of anything, if you do any sort of physical training, you will always have a routine that you're to follow. Because otherwise you're on the Alton Towers principle of, wandering around and have a go at everything and twice if you quite like it. So the aim of getting over the drown is it's overwhelm. Capture it, lock it into some sort of structure, and it doesn't have to be mine, but I give you a structure in the book, and then deal with it as it arises.
So as a result of reading your book, I've adopted your habit. I have a notebook, which just so happens to be a zero notebook. And every morning when I come in at 7:30, 7:45, I write down my 3 things that I must do's for today.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, invariably I will have crossed most of them off, but there might be one that I haven't quite finished, but that would then go on to this for tomorrow.
Yep.
But what I'm interested in is in your book, you talk about 5 habits that will keep you above water, if we use the drowning analogy.
Yep.
And I wondered whether you'd like to share those with people.
So the 5 habits that you actually to get, and I'm looking down at my own notes, so I use the same words that are in the book because I may not otherwise. Think, plan, execute, reflect, learn. So in my own words, as I'm doing it here, stuff's coming at you. Capture it. Once you've captured it, you need a regular set period of time where you actually think about it. What is this? What am I actually looking at here? Can this be dealt with quickly? Can this be dealt with? Is this something that's going to take longer? If it can be dealt with quickly, and quickly for me is under a minute. If I can deal with something under a minute, I'm forwarding it on, I'm storing it, I'm doing whatever. I've thought about it. I then turn that into a plan from there. So I list it out. It's listed out, it's put into something. I use 5 folders as well to list things out. And in the old days, and often to visualize, it's better to talk about the old days, I literally had an old style concertina file. And the 5 things were today, tomorrow, next week, next month, reference onto it. And I take that physical thing and I put it in one of the concertina folders. Now that can be an electronic folder nowadays. I use an inbox nowadays of Outlook. It can be a Dropbox. It can be a folder in Evernote. It can be 5 pieces of cardboard felled over. So you've captured it. You've planned it. When am I actually going to deal with this? When am I actually going to spend some time on this and do it? When it comes time to deal with it, think about it. What's next? What needs to actually be done? How do I plan this? Where is it going to sit? And then when am I going to do that? Now that could be at the same point, or it could be at some further point thing. So my own system would then be, I've taken it out, I've looked at it, I know I have to do this with it, and I then put it in for the next time I'm going to pick it up. And if I know I've captured it and it's going to be next week, I don't have to think about it now until next week. And next week I can take it out, I can look at it, I can work out what I'm going to do. Now, I admit some of the things that used to go in, even in the old folders and now in the electronic folders, go round and round and round and round. Because you look at it and think, oh, Jesus, I don't want to do this. Oh, God, this is the last thing I want to do. Oh, God. But at least you're not forgetting about it. At least it is still there and you've still got it in a captured system that might be going round and round and round, but it's still there. It's not just lost into the ether. And eventually if it's hassled you enough, you will get to it. The next part, you've executed it, you've thought about it, or you've done it, you've executed it. Think back regularly again. And I do it on Sundays. I literally go to Costa Coffee on a Sunday morning, and I do my planning for the week in a Costa Coffee on a Sunday morning, usually before my wife has even got up. I still do lots of exercise. I still do things. My Sunday morning is invariably, I have a bad knee nowadays and can't run in the way that I did. So I actually go on weighted walks instead. So I stick my 20-kilo rucksack on and I'll walk 10 miles to a Costa that I know. Well, 5 there and 5 back. So it's 10-mile walk with a weighted thing on. When I get there, I then look, I've planned my future week. I look back on what has happened in the previous week, the reflected bit, and get some lessons from it, learn from it. How could I do this better? How could I deal with that? Do I need some other training? Do I need another resource? Is it a staff member? Is it, I need a training thing? What comes out of those? What comes out of it invariably is some sort of learning piece, which then leads you into something else. Directly on businesses. The will writing business came out of that process because we couldn't find any lawyers within a reasonable distance of our offices who actually understood working with small business owners. So when they were coming to write wills and plan estates, they had no understanding of the tax implications of what they were doing and no understanding of the small business side to it. So that then led into me getting involved with the Society Will Writers, and then on to me taking STEP exams and creating a will writing business out of it. And that's literally from the make the bloody list methodology. That becomes a whole business in and of itself that I actually think accountants should be a lot more involved with, particularly in the small business space. We should be very much more involved in their estate planning, in their futures. Because again, clients, that's your type 2 value added services, in my opinion. That's your strategic planning, in my view, as opposed to just some airy-fairy report about things that clients love talking to you about. And you really get into their business if you start thinking about their succession planning and their estate planning and this is how your family are going to be looked after. And of course, if you start scratching at that, you're then into financial services as well. Because as soon as you do start scratching on that, you're into insurance policies and pensions and you can see how it all develops.
So as a result of what I call TPO, which is think, plan, execute, review, and learn, your methodology, we now have implemented a 2-minute rule. Now, so basically, which is Dave Allen, isn't it? Gets things done, as you call it. You changed the things to another word, haven't you? But
get shit done. Yeah.
And actually, what's quite interesting is one of my girls is Polish, and she said, "I might not have 2 minutes. Might take more than 2 minutes." I said, "Well, 2 minutes is just what we talk about it. If it's 5 minutes, if it's a short time, doesn't matter whether it's 2 or 5. But the idea is a bit like the old Stephen Covey idea with the jar with the rocks, the sand, and the pebbles, is to get the easy things done, get the sand and pebbles out of the way, so we can focus on the big things."
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that I think you teach in the book is continuous improvement. Is Kaizen, isn't it? 1%, isn't it?
Yeah. Kaizen, Kaizen is applied throughout industry. It's very much in the martial arts. I've been involved with martial arts since I'm 7 years old. They're very much part of me, martial arts. I teach martial arts. I teach traditional Shukakai karate. I have trained in Shotokan, Shukakai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Muay Thai. I've been around all things at different stages of my life, at different points in different things. And, at 53 years old, I'm not going to climb in the UFC octagon anymore and start doing that kind of stuff. That's not who I am at this point. I'm far too old and fat for that. But I have been in the early stages of MMA, and I have fought in that kind of thing in the past. And martial arts is entirely about Kaizen. In continuous improvement, 1% every day, be that little bit better, make that technique a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, learn the angle slightly more. And that's just the same in business. It's entirely the same in business. You should be constantly, it never stops learning, and you learn from anybody, anywhere at any point. My entire booking system that is in place in our firm came from a martial arts instructor that I was taking private lessons with, because I looked at how he was booking us into his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes and was kind of like, Christ, that's clever. Rather than and it's standard practice nowadays, but I mean, it's Calendly essentially linked up to a website. And we've been using that since it practically was invented, which is pre-pandemic. I think it was about 17, I think we started doing it. because it's cut out immediately all the telephone tennis between secretaries, and it cut out all the emails backwards and forwards. Well, I can do this time and you can do that time and we can do some other time, of just going, there's my diary, just book in what works for you. And
So I owe you a vote of thanks, because I think as a result of your book, we've started. So I've been in practice 40 odd years. I've had my own business for 30 years. And basically, I'm a little bit of a magpie. I see a new idea, have a go at it, get bored with it, on to the next one. And actually, what I've learned is that you need to see things through. If
yeah,
I'm doing something, I need to see things through. So what I've learned as a result of your book, and what I've implemented as a result of your book, is that we do a 1% every month with the team.
yeah,
So it's fingers on the buzzer, no conferring. So I want everybody to tell me what their 1% is, and then we then share them.
yeah,
And some of them, I think, to me, are what I would call common sense. I would think, oh, well, that's a bit of an easy one. But actually, to someone else, it's not. And the idea is, while we have 10 people in the team come up with each of their own 1%, the idea is they're all different things, so we can learn from each other.
yeah,
The other thing that we've done is the 2-minute rule. And then the other thing that I've done as a result of your book is to write down my 3 things of the day. And my next stage, once I've hacked that, and there's some days I've missed my 3 things of the day, I haven't actually written them down, but I need to get more into the routine of doing that. I'll then look at my weekly planning, what's coming ahead, because I think your book talks about being reactive or being proactive, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And being proactive on it. I hate the phrase in many respects, but it's the only way of saying it. Being proactive, being on top of what is coming, is how you get to do more things and how you get to experience more things. And this isn't about turning you into some sort of productivity ninja. It's to make you, it's to allow you to live the best life you want to live. You know, I get about 15 weeks off a year nowadays, and I'm delighted to have 15 weeks off a year, and I still handle all the stuff that is necessary to be done because I'm constantly looking forward to it. If I had one criticism of your methodology, you should write your 3 things down the night before while they're in your head. That way you don't have to take them home. You don't have to think about it overnight.
No, so basically, when I first started, I always used to be in at 7:30 in the morning, because back then the post had been delivered, and I would always make sure that I'd answered all the letters that came in today. So when my secretary came in at 9 o'clock, she would have all the posts. So she'd get on with what she needed to do, I get on with what I need to do. Because I'm a creature of habit, I find my best time is first thing in the morning.
Okay, fair enough.
And
It,
actually,
it would
I come
linger
in with
in
a
my
clear
head
head.
overnight if I did it that way, which is why I wouldn't want to. Um,
So in June 24, I had a seizure. So at the moment, I'm walking everywhere, because DVLA and their wisdom haven't given me my license back, even though everything's okay. So walking to work in the morning, it takes me 20 minutes each way. I'll think about what I'm going to do. I'll actually listen to a podcast, and I think, well, I'm going to do a post on this today, or this is what. So by the time I've come into work, I've almost thought my 3 things through. Are you with me?
yes, I understand. That's a good way of doing it. That is a great way of doing it, because it's that combination of things as well. Again, I agree with significantly of adding layers to stuff. You know, walking backwards and forwards is moving your body and exercising. And again, that's a big part of my own philosophy. And I mention it in this book and every other book that I talk about. Drink water and move, because it has a huge impact on you as an individual. And processing it while doing that is still working, even though you're moving somewhere else and doing something. That is again how you manage to experience most. In my opinion, like the real value of life is experiencing as much as you can, and being able to experience as many different things as you can, and see as many different things, and be around as many different things. That's the true value of living to it, and creating the time to do that by removing the burdens of your head and allowing you to have flexibility in the more organized you are. One of the people I often quote in books and often put down is an American serviceman, an ex-Navy SEAL from America called Jocko Willink. And Jocko has a tremendous phrase of discipline equals freedom. The more structure that you have around things, the more organization that you actually have in place, the freer you end up being. And it's true. Capturing your 3 things a day gives you the freedom to then operate during that day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're then bouncing off the walls trying to work out what it is you need to do, drowning, you're not free. You are tied at that stage.
So in your book, you introduce us to a concept, a phrase that you've used quite a few times in your books, I believe, which is called Hippo time.
Hippo time. Again, not from me, originally from Paul McKee, although I expand his meaning slightly. Paul is an ace guy. He's got loads of YouTube talks. And if you are listening to this, go away and have a look at Paul and his books and his work. He has some cracking stuff. Shut Up, Move On is one of the best business books around, in my opinion. And I would give an absolute shout out to him. Hippo time is, in his way, is literally sitting wallowing in the mud. And sitting wallowing in the mud. Now, it's a very important thing, I think, again. Hippo time is that time that you take out of your day, out of your week, to work out what it is that you're going to do next. Not in a reactive way, a proactive approach to it. I am going to spend actual conscious time in my diary as an appointment, working out what I have done, what I'm going to do, and how that's going to take me forward. And where am I going to get to? Having that, where am I going to get to? Now, everybody immediately assumes that's make £100 million or create an empire or be a big LinkedIn superstar thing. It isn't, not in my, well, it can be if that's what you want. For me, it's not. For me, it's, I want 15 weeks holiday. I want to deal with the clients that I want to deal with. I want to sit down and finalize those books. I mean, I've written now 15 business books. I have 5 novels in my head that I have carried since my teenage years that have been twisted and adopted and added to from things that I've seen in accountancy. And part of my plan for 27 is to create enough time to sit down and properly put the first one of those together as a novel. Now, even if nobody actually ever reads it, it's not the point. It's my journey of doing it. I will gain myself from actually doing that. If somebody ever reads it, fantastic, brilliant. If they get something out of it, if they enjoy the story, it's entertaining, wonderful. It's the same as all of these things. It's not about, for me, it's not about just the money or just the business thing. It's accepting that this is the stuff that I value, and I am going to create the time to get there. And Hippo time is part of that, of what is it that I actually want? What is that I actually value? Again, you will have had this, Paul. In your experience, most small business owners are not setting out to create an empire. They're not trying to be Amazon. They want to pay the bills and the mortgage and actually have a holiday. That's what most small businesses are about. My own's no different. I don't want to be the biggest firm of accountants in the world. You know, I've had a firm that was bigger than it is now and didn't enjoy it at all. I often talk about email existed, but it was embryonic. And this is 2007. I go out for a cup of coffee to a Starbucks and I come back about 30 minutes later and there are 72 Post-it notes put around my computer screen at that point. 72 Post-it notes put around my computer screen. And you just sat there with my head in my hands in despair, thinking if I just spend the rest of the week ringing these people back, that's the rest of the week gone. I've completely created a monster here. This isn't what I set out to do at all. This is a prison. This isn't freedom.
I always look back at my early days. I was almost chained to the desk. You know what I mean?
Completely. And in part, technology has improved that. In part, the fact
Chains a bit longer.
Yeah, it's a bit longer. Yeah. The fact that we can work anywhere nowadays, compared to it, my own practice is basically paper free. We certainly don't, unless you specifically ask for it and pay an extra charge, we don't produce any paper. Clients will bring it in, we'll digitize it. We don't produce it. As I say, there's one client who routinely pays for paper out the other end, but everything else isn't. What that means, and we've been like that for 12, 13 years at this stage. What that means is, though, I can literally sit anywhere. I can be on a VPN, and I go around with my own Wi-Fi and a VPN. I don't just use the coffee shops one because that's dangerous on things. And I can sit in any coffee shop anywhere and access everything just the same as if I'm sat in the office. So it has made it easier to get away from it. Because the early days you absolutely, 99 through to 2012, you absolutely were. If you wanted to do anything, you had to sit in the office and do it, and you had to get out paper files and you had to get out records and things. So that in part has, but it's also that thing of who is it I'm trying to be? I have one of the guys that trained at the same time as me ended up as a partner in one of the big four firms, and occasionally we'll have a Christmas meeting and we'll have a coffee or a lunch or something over Christmas. And I listen to his lifestyle. Now, the guy earns 10 times what I earn, but you listen to his lifestyle and you think, I wouldn't want that in a million years. You know, they came in the mid 2000s. They came in on a Wednesday after, or called him in on a Wednesday afternoon. He was a junior partner at this point, and said, "Oh, on Tuesday you're in Beijing and you're going to be there for the next 18 months." Well, no, thank you. Oh, I wouldn't want that. Sod that.
I think it almost comes back to the words of the Spice Girls: "What you want, what you really,
Really?
really want."
Yeah, completely.
And for us, and you'd be the same. It's what our clients want. It's not what we want. I don't want to impose my thought process. Some of the best times I've ever had is when we've had a blank sheet of paper.
Yep.
We sat down and talked about, what are your goals, what do you want to do, what your dreams. I call it ADHD: ambitions, dreams, hopes, and desires. What are they?
Yeah. What?
And actually, if I know those as your advisor, as your accountant, my role is to help you achieve them.
Yep.
Now they can change because life evolves, different things happen. But coming back to your internet, we still send out paper accounts for the clients that want paper accounts. So if you want a paper account, you have a set of paper accounts. And actually, I've actually got clients without internet access. Can you believe, in the 21st century? And do you remember when the VAT changed to electronic submission?
Yes.
There was an exception that if you were religious or geographical,
Yep.
you didn't have to submit the VAT returns electronically. We've actually got one of those cases that is geographic. We've got a farmer on the moor that's right at the edge of the tor, and there's no mobile phone signal
there. Yeah.
So when we actually wrote to the revenue to say we're not going to be able to submit electronically, we actually had to give the actual grid reference of the property. So presumably the revenue checked and say, oh yeah, there's no phone mast, can't do it.
Yeah.
And in a way, if that's how clients want us to interact, want to behave with us, how communication needs to be, it's a bit like you when you take on a new client. You want to understand what ways do they want you to communicate with you? Do they want WhatsApp? Do they want a phone call? Do they want a letter?
Yep.
Do they want an email? Do they want to? And it's different strokes for different folks. If there were some quick wins based on your book, and I'm one of these people that probably like you, is I've literally got probably 500 business books, and actually my wife insisted I take them away from home because they were encroaching on the rooms.
Mine are all over there. I've got the same thing. I can't swing the camera around easily. I've got exactly the same thing with post-it notes all over it, and yeah.
But the thing for me, and I think it came from your book as well, it's the difference between reading a book and consuming a book, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that I always want at the end of the book, so basically the way I do it is I read a book from cover to cover, I then go back and make notes.
Yep.
And then when I make notes at the book, I will write 3 things at the end I'm going to implement as a result of reading the book. Because if the book's going to be of value to me, instead of just passing time and just being a hobby of mine, I need to take action from it, and you need to write down those actions. So I guess my question to you is, if there are some actions that people could undertake which would bring quick wins, what in your opinion would be the top 3 for you?
I will give you 3, but I'd say the very first win you can possibly do ever is to schedule a point in your diary where you are away from the business, away from the family, away from everything. 20 minutes, 30 minutes a week where you go and sit in a coffee shop or on the motorway services or wherever it is. And at that point, you're not answering the phone, you're not answering your kids, your wife, your partner, your clients, anything else. And you actually start the process of working out who it is you want to be, what it is you want, and write that down. If you start from there, all the rest of the book will come out of it. Because if you routinely put that in place, there'll be loads of minor stuff of, I want to build a new shed, or, I have to get a new set of saucepans. And there'll be loads of bigger stuff like picking our world. I hate the clients I work with because they're all doctors and I don't like doctors. I only want to deal with plumbers or whatever onto it. And if you take that time once a week, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I've told this to people and they've built it in as a Tuesday morning on the way into the office, they'll go and sit somewhere. On a Friday evening on the way home, they'll leave earlier. I allow my own staff to do this, to pick a point where they have 30 minutes, they can come in later or leave earlier, but they have to have actually sat down somewhere away from home, away from their place of work, in a neutral location, and actually sat and thought about it and written down what it is. So you give it thought, you put 30 minutes a week into that, you write it down as to what it is what you want and how you want to achieve it, and then you break that down into stages. I can do this next week, I can do that next week. There's that old saying, everybody underestimates what they can do in a decade and overestimates what they can do in a year. I've had kids come into martial arts clubs who, I'm being bullied, I'm being picked on, and think in 3 classes they can learn how to fight that bully. They can't, but in 5 years they can. And 5 years later they can be a professional fighter if they want to be. And I've had professional fighters come through. So start there. Start with 20 minutes a week. You've sat somewhere different. You've stopped off on the motorway services or in that Costa Coffee. You've actually thought through what it is you want out of life, what it is you want to achieve. I want to earn this much money so I can go on holiday. I want this much holiday. I want to rebuild the shed. I want to do whatever onto it. Then break that down, then write that down, and then keep planning that and keep working on that. There's your tips.
So for me, I know that works. So part of my story is that in 1999, December 1999, I contracted meningococcal septicemia. I had meningitis. I was in hospital for 2 weeks. The first week, I don't remember a thing.
Yeah.
The second week, when I came to, I almost frightened myself by reading a leaflet on what the side effects of meningitis could be, loss of limbs, brain damage. And I asked the sister on the wall, can I have a piece of paper and a pen? And I wrote down the 10 things that I wanted to achieve in the following 12 months.
Yep.
I'm of that generation. I always have a bureau. So I fold out my piece of paper, put it in my bureau, locked it away till the Christmas following. And of those 10 things, I'd achieved 8 of them, because I think this up here, I call the neck top. It's the best computer you'll ever have.
Absolutely.
And basically, if you program it, if you actually write things down, your brain, your neck top will take you towards them to achieve.
Absolutely.
That. And I think that's the power of writing things down.
Yeah, it's not real if you don't write it down. It's not real. You've got to write it down. And again, part of my own writing the books has been to process stuff in my own head. Because as I said, they all come out of things that I've already written and that I've already created elsewhere. All of it, every book I've published to date has been already existing in a form. I may have finalized it and completed it, but you have to write it down. You have to sit there and physically. And I actually think handwriting stuff actually makes a difference too, rather than just typing.
So I'm a fountain pen man.
I wish I was. I'm still on a biro nowadays. I'm not very good with fountain pens.
I remember the good old days at school. We used to have ink all over your fingers. That's still me today. You know what I mean? Trying to fill it up and all that type of stuff. But I love that. And I still think, even though in the 21st century, in the technological age and things have moved on, I still value some of the old things. And I still think some of the old things work. I think handwriting things, cards, letters, things like that actually matter.
Yep.
And I think that they work. Your new book is out in September. So
yes.
What is your new book about, Rob?
The new book, as I say, is about team members. It's recruiting, maintaining, keeping, and developing teams. And it's called That First Person You Hire, You'll Never Forget.
I can remember them. Because when I first started, I came out of partnership, and my receptionist was the reception at my old firm, and my ex-partners weren't exactly too happy about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nicking their receptionist. So that created some issues. And basically in the early days, it was just me and her. And actually you build up quite a rapport. You get to know people when there's just a couple of you, isn't there? So I've really enjoyed today, Rob, and thank you for your time. And you've been generous enough to send me 10 copies of your book. So those of you that are listening today, if you'd like a copy of your book, if you reach out to me, and I'm showing you the book here, it's a great book. It's a very practical book. And I'm sure there are 3 key actions that you could take, as I have taken, that will change the way that you work for the better. So thank you, Rob.
No, thank you very much. Much appreciated, Paul. Really appreciate talking about it. Thank you.